Have you ever stopped to think about how someone who has always been kind, honest, and respected can suddenly become the embodiment of the opposite? It seems impossible, doesn't it? But the reality is more disturbing than we'd like to admit. Under the right or wrong circumstances, any of us can cross lines we never imagined crossing. And no, this isn't an exaggeration. Studies show that even the kindest people can succumb to darkness when pressured by the right factors. Picture this: an ordinary person, maybe someone you know, faced with a difficult moral choice. It's not just about making a mistake, it's about transforming their very essence. Could the environment, power, or even personal fears be strong enough to change who we are? What's most unsettling is realizing that, often, we don't even notice when we begin straying from our values. In this video, we're diving deep into the invisible forces that shape human behavior. Discover how the environment, the psyche, and life experiences can turn even the best intentions into devastating actions. Get ready, because what you're about to hear might completely change the way you see goodness. In extreme situations, human beings are tested like never before. Imagine someone facing starvation in the midst of a disaster. Acts that once seemed unthinkable become viable choices. Hannah Arendt reminds us that the banality of evil emerges in moments where ethics dissolve into chaos. The human psyche, in this turbulence, often seeks to justify morally ambiguous choices to preserve its own survival. The lingering question is, how far would you go to protect yourself or the ones you love? Context also shapes what we perceive as right or wrong. A worker falsifying reports might argue that they're doing it to keep their job and support their family. Man is the measure of all things, said Protagoras, and in this sense, morality shifts as the environment demands. This phenomenon reveals how external pressures expose the vulnerabilities in our moral compass. Human ethics are as fragile as thin glass, seemingly sturdy, but prone to shattering under pressure. Consider soldiers who, under orders, commit atrocities they'd never imagined doing in peacetime. This behavior reflects how the human psyche adapts to external pressure, bending to the environment to minimize internal conflict. However, in doing so, the soul faces dilemmas that leave deep scars. Humans are deeply social creatures, and the desire to belong can lead us down dark paths. It's both fascinating and terrifying how people, in the pursuit of acceptance, can betray their own values. Experiments like Milgram's demonstrate this unsettling truth. Ordinary individuals administered lethal shocks to others simply because an authority figure told them to. This need to conform is powerful and often acts as an invisible force shaping our daily decisions. Imagine a common scene. A group of colleagues laughs at an offensive joke, and, even though you're uncomfortable, you laugh along. This small concession might seem insignificant, but it reveals how group pressure influences even the subtlest behaviors. Philip Zimbardo's Stanford Prison experiment showed that even kind individuals can transform into something terrible when adopting roles assigned by the collective. When the group speaks louder, individual morality falls silent. This dynamic isn't limited to extreme scenarios or psychological studies. Think about how hate movements gain momentum. They grow because individuals who might privately disagree give in to the impulse to belong. The human psyche, shaped by evolution to seek social connections, is easily manipulated by this need. Is it possible that group influence is shaping your choices without you even realizing it? When we see someone as less human, we create a dangerous space for morality to fail. This phenomenon is more common than we think, present in everything from cruel schoolyard teasing to the horrors of war and genocide. As Jean-Paul Sartre said, hell is other people, but only because we choose to ignore what connects us. The human psyche, in self-defense, often creates narratives that simplify the complexity of others to justify exclusion or even violence. A daily example is the angry driver who yells insults at another on the road, forgetting that the other car contains a person with their own problems and stories. This emotional detachment is a subtle form of dehumanization. Scaled up, it leads to actions like bullying or discrimination. Thinkers like Viktor Frankl argue that between stimulus and response, there is a space, and in that space lies the choice to see the other as an equal, or as an adversary. Dehumanization often disguises itself as self-preservation. The psyche builds barriers, justifying actions that protect our identity or comfort zone. In harming another, we tell ourselves it was necessary or even inevitable. Ask yourself, how do you behave toward those who think differently? Can you see the same humanity in them that you demand for yourself? Power tends to corrupt, and absolute power corrupts absolutely, said Lord Acton. Ambition, when unchecked, can transform even the best of us. Think of leaders who began with noble promises, but strayed from their values as they gained influence. This isn't limited to politics or business. Even in smaller circles like the workplace or family, the pursuit of status can cloud morality. The human psyche is drawn to power because it brings a sense of control and security. Yet, when this desire becomes obsessive, ethical principles are cast aside. Picture a professional who manipulates colleagues to secure a promotion. This small concession might seem like part of the game, but over time, such actions create a domino effect, eroding the values that once defined their behavior. Stories of rise and fall, like Shakespeare's Macbeth, show how unchecked ambition can devastate both the power seeker and those around them. In practice, the key is cultivating healthy ambition aligned with clear values. Ask yourself, does your pursuit of success respect the well-being of others, or are you sacrificing principles along the way? After all, what is truly worth achieving? The scars of the past shape the present in unexpected ways. As Carl Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Unresolved traumas act as silent ghosts, influencing decisions and behaviors destructively. Someone who was betrayed might become excessively distrustful, damaging future relationships without realizing the problem lies within their unresolved pain. These resentments can also manifest in destructive actions. Consider someone who, feeling undervalued in childhood, relentlessly seeks recognition, sometimes at others' expense. This constant search for validation is an attempt to heal an old wound. Viktor Frankl, a Holocaust survivor, teaches us that true freedom comes from finding purpose, even amidst pain. For many, this begins with the courage to confront their traumas head-on. To overcome these challenges, practices like therapy or reflective writing can be powerful. Writing about past hurts can help organize and reframe them. Ask yourself, what stories from the past are you carrying as unnecessary baggage? More importantly, what can you do today to start letting them go? Ignorance is often the root of harmful actions. As Socrates said, "I know that I know nothing," and this intellectual humility could be the key to avoiding serious mistakes. A lack of critical reflection leads us to act on autopilot, following inherited beliefs or patterns without questioning their validity. For instance, someone who discriminates against a group without understanding their history or reality perpetuates injustices out of sheer misinformation. The human psyche tends to seek cognitive shortcuts, relying on assumptions to save mental effort. However, these shortcuts are traps that reinforce biases and limit empathy. Books like *Sapiens* by Yuval Noah Harari expand our worldview by challenging beliefs we once thought unquestionable. Reflection is a powerful antidote to ignorance, and continuously educating oneself strengthens ethical awareness. Here's a simple practice. Whenever you hear an opinion that differs from yours, resist the urge to react immediately. Ask yourself, what can I learn from this? This reflective pause can be transformative. After all, it's not ignorance itself that defines us, but our willingness or unwillingness to overcome it. Are you ready to open your mind to the unknown? The fear of being hurt or exploited is one of the cornerstones of the human psyche. As Hobbes said, man is a wolf to man, and this instinctive insecurity often drives selfish or aggressive actions. Imagine someone who constantly interrupts others in conversation, not out of arrogance, but as a defense against the fear of being ignored. Self-defense, however, isn't always physical. It's often emotional. People who keep others at arm's length, who seem cold or indifferent, often do so out of fear of being hurt. This behavior is like building high walls but trapping oneself behind them. To start breaking down these barriers, practices like meditation or open conversations can be essential. As Brené Brown suggests, vulnerability is true strength. Try something simple. In your next conversation, notice if you're genuinely listening or just preparing to respond. Allowing yourself to truly hear without fear is a small act of courage that can transform your interactions. What are you protecting so fiercely? And is that shield truly necessary, or just an illusion reinforcing your insecurities? The age-old question remains, are we inherently bad, or do we become so? For Hobbes, man's natural state is a constant struggle, while Rousseau believed society corrupts us. The human psyche, with all its complexities, seems fertile ground for both arguments. A practical example is children. They can be kind and cruel, depending on their circumstances and what they learn. Consider an honest worker who, faced with financial difficulties, chooses a morally questionable path. Were they always bad, or did the environment shape that choice? Man is nothing but what education makes of him, said Kant, emphasizing the role of external conditions in character formation. This duality between innate nature and societal influence reveals how our actions reflect our interaction with the world. Reflecting on evil leads us to personal responsibility. Yes, society exerts enormous influence, but the individual decides how to respond. Reading works like Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning can help us understand how conscious choices can overcome adverse circumstances. Have you stopped to examine what's shaping your decisions in daily life? Now that you know the forces capable of transforming even the best people, the question is, what will you do with this knowledge? Will you continue ignoring the subtle signs around you, or will you start questioning your choices and behaviors? Perhaps it's time to reflect. Are you living according to your values, or are you being carried by the environment, social pressure, or your own fears? Imagine what your life would be like if, in every decision, you remembered who you truly want to be. It may seem challenging, but small actions can make all the difference. Start today. Observe your attitudes, question your intentions, and, most importantly, cultivate empathy. After all, what defines who we are is what we do, even when no one is watching. If you want to keep learning and diving into topics like this, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Here, every video is an invitation to reflect and transform. Are you ready for this journey?